Like most who heard the news, I was hyped at the prospect of playing the vampire counts. Like most playing the game, however, I wasn't expecting the vampire counts to be one of the harder and longer of the campaigns to go through. Unless my current orc playthrough throws even more roadblocks at me, then both of my vampire playthroughs will prove to be the only second to the Chaos Lords in terms of the amount of turns required to complete. The weakness of their early game armies, the attrition you suffer in non-corrupt lands, as well as the objective of wiping out the stubborn dwarves means that for a non-horde army, they are the slowest to achieve their ultimate victory. Kind of fitting really, considering they are the lords at the end of life. For this video, I'm going to be tackling the von Carsteins. I may cover the vampire lords separately, but they play more or less the same. Now as we start our game, we have to choose between Vlad or Isabella von Carstein. This one is a bit tricky. Regardless of which lord you pick, the second will become available on turn 2. Vlad is by far the superior commander, but Isabella has the better global stats, being able to field more vampire agents and making those agents do a lot more damage in battle. This bonus will be lost if she is picked up second, whilst Vlad's siege attacker attribute will not be. On the flip side, Vlad is the better commander early game. He can assault garrisons without siege equipment and unlocks possibly the single greatest ability at level 4, the Coven of Undeath. This slowly increases the ranking of all units in your army, including garrison forces. By late game, a massively outnumbered garrison can still win against superior forces, as the gold echelon rankings leave them fighting to the last even without a vampire or necromancer to add leadership. Who you pick first determines if we get this ability at turn 5 or turn 25. I personally opted for Isabella because despite her being a blood-sucking killer, she does give me the weirdest boner. Now the first few turns are going to be vital, so pay attention. Form a non-aggression pact with the vampire counts and declare war with Tempelhof. Place both vampiresses in your army and march to the left side of your territory. Recruit some troops, preferably direwolves, and raise whatever dead you can before ending your turn. March up to Fort Obensteier and capture it quickly, raising whatever dead you can along the way. Run straight for Castle Tempelhof, where you will likely be met by 3 full armies. You're going to have to fight this one on the battlefield to give Isabella a pretty new home. Position your troops just in front of the swamplands to give them a fighting bonus. Place all of your Fellbats and Vargeist in a group and send them out to kill and surround any units that get separated from the rest of the main force. The Tempelhofs are not the greatest commanders, and they're frequently going to leave Fellbats and direwolves alone to get picked off. The more units we can crumble now, the greater the global leadership penalty the enemy will face, and the sooner they are all going to crumble. Although we have 3 mages, we don't want to be using lefty or righty too much, as the Winds of Magic is not strong and we don't have much to spare. Most of the magic will be spent overclocking the invocation of Nehek. Keep your forces close together so that they benefit more from your hero's leadership effects, as well as to hit as many units as possible with your spells. There's a 50% chance that the spell will miscast and hurt Isabella, but as long as she is standing in her own aura, she is going to be getting healed anyway, so don't worry too much. Just be aware that each unit has a limited amount of healing per battle. If a grey bar appears on their health bar, they cannot go beyond this point. How much healing each unit has left in any given battle can be checked by clicking on the unit information screen. The fact that vampire armies have essentially 2 life bars is what makes them so strong in wars of attrition. You will be outnumbered in this fight, so you're going to win by breaking the enemy's morale. Seek out and kill the enemy lords with your strongest troops. Isabella is good enough to go headhunting, but be careful of her 2 companions. They are not good duelists and will be better spent wailing through the undead as opposed to killing their lords outright. Your Vargeist are also good for this, although can usually do more good by repeatedly flying into the back of the enemy army. If your Fellbats take too much damage, just position them behind the enemy army. The simple fact that they are surrounded by bats will tank their morale. No engagement necessary, and especially useful if they're starting to crumble themselves. Following this battle, remove your 2 vampires and deploy them in your province. We want Sylvania to grow quickly, and the extra 20 growth they each bring will help us tech up quicker. Once this is done, move quickly to secure as many of the following provinces as possible. If you're in luck and the vampire counts are slow, you can secure 5 provinces. all of Western Sylvania and most of the Eastern Sylvania without too much struggle. Once this is done, it's time to turtle up and grow. It's going to be hard to attack the nearby human factions without starting a chain reaction that pisses most of them off. More importantly, we need time for vampiric corruption to spread, otherwise we'll need to stick a full stack army on a piece of land to stop it revolting. Not only that, but you're going to want to be moving them in attack stance just to stop them losing units to attrition. There's no point going to war with the vampire counts at the moment, as we want to confederate them later to get all 5 legendary lords. Also, because this is on legendary difficulty, despite having 1 province to your 5, they will be able to field twice as many units as you can, so war with them is ill-advised. Get a defensive alliance with them if you can in time, but steer clear of a military one, or you will be forced to go to war with every dickhead they do. For the time being, we're going to want to turn our attention towards the mountains. Possibly more so than any other faction, the vampires benefit from high-tier buildings. 2 of their high-end buildings produce a sizable amount of income that can be upgraded with research. Raiding and sacking the dwarves will help bring in the income we desperately need. Make sure to position your armies in raiding stance to avoid attrition and start taking the fight to them. As is usually the case when facing the AI, rushing straight for the gate is usually your best point of call. This goes tenfold for the vampire counts. By keeping all of your units grouped into a big mass, we keep everyone together, allowing Isabella's leadership buff to stop them from crumbling. They will take roughly equal damage, meaning overclocking Invocation of Nehek will be at its most efficient, able to heal a sizable chunk to each unit in your army. By the end of the battle, when the enemy are running, group your units together and use whatever magic you have remaining to raise them from the dead. This goes for all battles in the campaign, not just the early ones. Apparently vampires can more easily raise the dead when there is fresh blood in the air. Using this tactic, you can come out of battles with almost no casualties. Just be aware if a unit entered a fight with some dead troops, you can't raise them past that point. This doesn't seem to carry over to individual health bars, however, and it's possible for vampires to enter a fight at half health and leave fully replenished this way. Now, whilst dwarves are a good starting target, we want to ultimately take the fight to the orcs when we can. Be careful not to piss off more than 2 tribes at once and try to get peace treaties when possible. We only want to be at war with one of the green-skinned tribes at any time. Why, you ask? Because everyone fucking hates orcs. Killing these bastards is the only chance the Carsteins have of any kind of diplomacy with the human factions. Being able to trade with them in the early game is going to be a great boon to our economy. In fact, I got so good at killing green things that the Empire actually wanted a defensive alliance with me. Bless them. Keep slaughtering in the mountains and building up your economy. Once we have a few more agents, we want to start deploying them north. This is where we're going to be heading up initially to expand, so we want to start spreading vampiric corruption sooner rather than later. As they level up, be sure to put points that increase how quickly they corrupt. Deploying agents will not piss off our neighbours, and they can be perfectly happy with us whilst we undermine their provinces. It may take a long time on legendary, but it's perfectly possible to cause an uprising, watch them burn the city to the ground and then reclaim the ruins as our own without ever having to go to war. This is only going to be part of our grand strategy, however. By around turn 60 to 70, we want to start making plans to send an expedition force north. We should have hopefully built up a sizable surplus of money at this point, and we will need it. We won't need strong troops just yet, although a large number of zombies will make colonization much cheaper. Be careful not to start any wars and try to make peace with whoever might be angry with you. If in doubt, besiege their capital. They will almost always opt for peace, even if they have the superior numbers at that point. Around turn 80, the first waves of chaos will start to pour in. This is where the vampire's patience and scheming pays dividends. The first wave will wage war with the human factions but be largely indifferent to our presence. Let them fight it out, moving quickly to recapture any ruins left behind. Just like we did at the start, use vampires to increase Grove Province. White Kings can be used to improve public order, and necromancers can be used to make buildings cheaper, whilst I like to send my banshees out to assassinate anyone who starts messing with the corruption. Now we have 50 turns until Archeon rolls in. That's 50 turns to transform these ruins into cities. Build walls everywhere. We want every single province here to have the best defences possible to bear the brunt of Archeon's invasion. Even if we're not able to get relief there in time, having a strong garrison allows you to fight it on the battlefield. Even if it's ultimately a losing fight, you can still inflict enough casualties for your forces to mop up the remains. Don't capture a settlement unless you can control the whole province. Without all parts of a province and the ability to enact a doctrine, you're going to struggle to stop it from revolting without leaving a garrison. The last thing we want is to be unflexible and force an army to stay bunkered down in one spot. By now you're sure to notice a few battle sites strewn across here from where the Empire and Norscan tribes have been fighting. Use these to raise your dead, meaning you don't have to worry about building up military buildings and can focus more heavily on economy. Seriously, just take a look at how broken raised dead can be. Terrorgeist, Vargulf, Graveguard, Mortis Engines, Blood Knights and Hex Wraiths all recruited in a single turn. In the entire campaign, start to finish, I probably recruited less than 20 units. This is why economy is so important to the vampires. Having a surplus of dark energy means you can raise a strong, well-balanced army in a single turn. If you play it smart, there's almost no point to ever build military buildings with them. Once the end times come, we want our best force in Volksgrad, acting like a bottleneck against the strongest the Chaos have to offer, whilst our lesser armies are spread out across the northern areas to defend against Norscan incursions. With the vampire counts our, hopefully, allies, we don't need forces in Sylvania. If you've been smart and gotten peace treaties where possible, we can devote everything against Chaos. Whilst we are not usually their first target, that honour goes to the Empire, Archaon will come for us in time, so it's better to face him now once we have a pretty new city in the north and try to crush their incursion early. My fight with the Chaos here was nothing short of an epic clusterfuck. They were content to starve me out, so I waited as long as I could before attrition would start occurring before taking the fight to them. Trying to control a large army is no easy feat, especially when you have so many units that some of them occasionally pop in as reinforcements when others die. I just had to put the majority on a hill, protecting a mortis engine. The Chaos troops are tough, but they have little in the way of ranged units. Their biggest threat will be the hell cannons that they have a nasty habit of leaving unprotected. Send flying units and cavalry out to deal with these. The Chaos troops are tougher and better armoured than yours, but apart from their trolls they can't regenerate. All of your units can. Keep your Mortis engine protected and it will regenerate your host. It can't revive units though, so you will need to use the invocation of Nehek from this from time to time. Use this sparingly however at critical moments. With the Mortis engine doing the majority of the healing, we want to use our Winds of Magic on the other spells. Use the Fate of Buna on tough enemies, Spirit Leech on heroes and Pit of Shades on mass blobs of infantry. The further benefit of the Mortis engine is that they will actually increase our Winds of Magic, so we will need to use that in our advantage here. Now when you're defending provinces, don't even bother sending your zombies to attack. When they crumble, they will tank the rest of your army's morale. Instead, try to position them on otherwise unoccupied areas of the wall, to man towers that wouldn't normally be activated to shoot out. Otherwise, just send them to guard your centre against any routing units that might reform and get wise ideas about capturing your base. Seriously, this is a really fucking dumb mechanic where routing enemy units run further into your base rather than away from it. If they regroup in your base, they can capture your base from under your nose and you'll end up having lost an otherwise surefire win. Be careful not to let this happen. Now Fellbats are not good frontline fighters but are excellent flankers. Have them attack in the rear of already engaged forces to see them crumble. If the enemy start attacking with hell cannons that are left unattended, have these squash them instead. Don't underestimate just how useful bats can actually be. Use Varghese like your hammer, hitting vital points in the enemy line. Have Crypt Horrors defending your gates backed up by Graveguard that can tank some damage. This will allow them to reap the full benefits of their regeneration. Don't worry about losing a province here and there in your war against Chaos. You will always have a teched up Sylvania to fall back on. Being so close to the Chaos Wastelands, the Chaos Warlords will not have much opportunity to retreat and regroup. If you lose a province or settlement, recruit a new lord near a battle site so he can raise a new army quickly and send him out. Use your armies to leapfrog between garrisons and move when they need to be. This is why getting walls in all your provinces was so important, as it gives us a network to move about and fight back from. It also gives us several turns to move troops where they need to go, to fight and ultimately crush chaos. Once chaos is defeated, a tentative peace will persist between you and the Empire for a time. It's in your best interest to keep this going as long as possible. Negotiate peace with the Norscan tribes and send your armies to reclaim whatever ruins remain south of you. Around this time you should have also gotten strong enough to confederate the vampire lords into your own host. With 5 legendary lords plus whatever armies you have, you'll be in a good position to go to war. Position your armies on the borders of the Empire and build up your economy. Don't declare war on them, otherwise you risk bringing in whatever allies they have as well. Very possibly the dwarves, and we want to hold them off for the time being. Instead, start undermining their settlements by spreading vampiric corruption or brazen fires and agents. Once they inevitably declare war on you, be ready to wipe them out. Empire forces tend to be pretty well rounded, but jack of all trades are masters of none. Graveguard can beat their infantry if backed up by crypt horrors. Be sure to have plenty of flying units to tie up their ranged ones. You have no ranged units to speak of, so your goal is to try and engage as much of their army with yours as possible. Empire units tend to be mid-tier in terms of leadership, so you can shock and awe units with the terror guys to send them running, and then bats or wolves to hunt them down. Blood Knights can hold their own against most units except their demigryphs. For these, send out Hex Wraiths and be sure to avoid the enemy mages. Whatever you do, just don't use black coaches. Until someone can convince me otherwise, I'm convinced they're just a waste of magic and space. Remember that you can raise the dead following large battles to replenish lost troops. Also, even if your units get wiped out, as long as you win the fight, there's a chance the dead will rise again. You can replenish your armies far quicker than the Empire can, so be relentless and don't stop until the humans are wiped out. Much like with Chaos, now begins the tedious part. The dwarves will likely have conquered around 30 settlements and are not easy to dislodge from the mountains. They also have arguably the strongest late game units, with iron breakers being literal brick walls armed with explosives. Whilst you can raise dead, you can't replenish troops in the mountains or in the Badlands, meaning that Altdorf is your last pit stop for resupplying. The main strategy of the dwarves here is to have a strong bulwark of tough troops in their front line whilst their range units and artillery whittle away. You have no artillery to answer with your own, so these attacks can sometimes be reminiscent of the charge of the Light Brigade. Vlad's ability can help even the odds. With his ability to deploy his troops in vanguard means that the Dwarven artillery will struggle to fire more than a single volley before your troops are upon them. They have no dedicated anti-large units, so bring along lots of monstrous infantry, such as Vargulf and Crypt Horrors to take advantage of this fact. Just make sure you tie down their ranged units, as they will rip through your no-armoured juggernauts. Send flying units after any copters they may have, and much like with the Emperor, make sure you tie their ranged units up. I found that Raise the Dead spells work well here, whether it's the usual skeleton kind, the crypt version of the Strigori, or the Graveguard version of Hermann Gorst. Send your lord in and then start summoning undead directly behind their lines. Be aware though that Dwarven leadership is ridiculous on this difficulty. Even when completely surrounded, they will fight on. Be sure to bring armour piercing units too. Graveguard with great weapons and Khan Wraiths can fulfill this role. Just be aware that they will be more vulnerable to ranged fire than their shielded brethren. Now, killing off the dwarf shouldn't be nearly as difficult as it was with the Chaos Warriors. You can field a large number of units, and the vampire's ability to raise the dead means losing any army means very little to us, provided you still have a strong economy going and plenty of dark magic. At this point, it's important to remember what the end game goal is. We want to capture pretty much all of the human territory. The dwarves will be a massive thorn in our side, but their destruction is not necessary for completion. After you've wiped them out from the nearby mountains, they will continue to harass you from the Badlands. Set up a few armies around Akendorf whilst you go and take the remaining lands you need. The border princes and Tilly around here, if they're still alive, won't put up much resistance, and you can easily steamroll the last of the lands. Once that is done, you can carry on to wipe out the dwarves, but for now, long victory has been achieved. The vampires are middle of the road in terms of difficulty. Their early game is tough. Whilst their leader units are strong, their armies are not, and they start surrounded by people that hate your guts. Both the humans and the dwarves have far better troops at this point, and expansion is made difficult with the corruption mechanic. You can't encamp like other races, so replenishing your troops is impossible when not on home territory. It's why I strongly suggest turtling up with them more than any other faction. Bide your time and wait for your strengths to come in. Getting past the early game, your campaign will become much easier. The vampires' ability to raise armies so quickly means that once you have a strong economy, you start to snowball. Even if you lack the strategic foresight, you can just raise army after army and wear your opponents down through sheer attrition. Their late game troops are tough without being overly expensive. The vampires' playstyle is damn fun, foregoing ranged units in favour of flying units and magic. It mixes things up, means you have to always be on the offensive. Their ability to raise short-term troops directly behind the enemy lines is one of the reasons they are so potent in single player or multiplayer. And let's be real, no matter how many times we see it, seeing Varghese crash down onto enemy ranks never gets old. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this guide. I already think it's a big improvement over my last one, and hopefully they'll continue to get better. Anyways, until next time, kapow!